Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. The case I decided was case 2-2. It's pertaining to the HD TVs and the LCD, LED monitors, much ado about nothing, stuff like that. That or the Zynga app, I was really tied between both cases. I think both of them really have a lot of marketing background between both of them. Not to disregard the rock climbing case, but I really thought that either the HD TVs or that Zynga app really brings marketing into a full circle here. And I decided to choose the monitor one because I kind of like technology, electronics, gadgets, things of that nature. So basically, how I structured this presentation is we're going to first get a little introduction of what this project's going to be about, diving into the original CRTV, ancient dinosaur like, huge in size television monitor. And then further progressing through the years, we were introduced to flat pane displays, LCDs, LEDs, now like 4K, 8K displays. So we're going to kind of cover all of that as well as answer some of the questions that were pertaining to this case. So let's just dive right in. Basically, in today's ever-developing tech world, many changes have been made to accommodate the needs of consumers. So consumers have asked, and these brands have spoken. They've delivered. So brands like Sony, LG, Samsung, these guys have been pioneers in this TV business for years, and we've all seen their brand names amongst some of the new economically designed TVs that are a little bit cheaper but still doing the same kind of function. So in this presentation, I hope to shed some light into this new HD era, answer some questions pertaining to the matter and what customers really perceive the products as, and what are some of their decision making factors. So as I said, we're going to kind of dive into the CRTVs first. So let's rewind several decades ago. Basically, the CRTV, it was first commercially made by a company, Telefunken in Germany, back in 1934. So we're talking some significant time ago. What is a CRTV? A CRTV is a cathode ray tube, and it's like, what is that? So a cathode is a negative electrode which can cast shadows on the glowing walls of the tubes. Okay, so the cathode rays would deflect by electrical fields or magnetic fields that display on this phosphor-coated screen. So your images would be portrayed in black and white through the projection of this tube with the electrons and the magnetic field, and it sticks to this phosphorus colored wall, giving us our black and white motion picture or display. They were very limited. Very few specs were on these devices at that time. There was no inputs. We're familiar with maybe interfacing our laptops, MacBooks, even our phones nowadays, two big screen TVs where we can display plug-in HDMIs, or a few years ago RCA, the red, yellow, and white cables to hook up video game systems, DVD players, VHS players for that matter. So that was not present on any of these older TVs. So between the 40s and 60s, there was a shift, okay, in the circular domed displays of the TVs, and we got more of a flat paned glass. So that addition, upgrade, whatever you want to call it, dramatically improved the glare. Okay, so you wouldn't get other things in the living space reflected on that screen when you're trying to view your shows or whatnot. In addition to that, you would be getting a lot more image quality improvement. So back in the 50s, about the mid 50s, a brand we may all know, RCA, they created the first color CRTV. So introducing color was a big thing. Obviously, everybody wanted to see people's hair colors and what they're wearing, and to do that, that phosphorus coated background was then introduced to different color phosphors, so like blue, green, some of your primary colors which you can meld together to create secondary, tertiary colors such as that. that is what was designed to get the color into these old CRTVs. So in addition to that, I mean, these things were just bulky machines, extremely heavy throughout the years. I'm talking from inception in the early 20s, 30s, all the way up until the 90s. We did weight reductions took place, things of that nature, just to make it more feasible to get in your home, to get in your living space. At that time, I would like to say that it was a luxury for the wealthy class to afford these, as they were not readily available for everybody to purchase. Whether it was their, financial despair or whatnot, they were kind of expensive for that time. But as I said, they progressed throughout the years, well into the 90s when it finally met its successor. But before we get into its successor, I kind of want to sneak over here and talk about the pre and post Y2K, or the new 2000 era. Still pre Y2K, during the mid 90s, 160 million CRTVs were produced annually, just to accommodate the consumer's need for purchasing these items, bringing them into their home. 160 million a year. Big, bulky TVs. Wild. So, as I said, we eliminated the domed display. We got into a flat pane glass display. Eventually replaced the CRTVs around the year 2000, where they were just becoming obsolete. Okay, if we were getting an LCD TV, a flat screen. As you can see in some of these pictures here, in the top right corner, it's like a computer monitor. Even the bottom left corner, that was a bigger projection, like an LCD TV. So they had multiple different uses. In the top left corner, I'm talking about a little LCD display that can be used for instrument panels in airplanes, or in different environments where that kind of technology was necessary and needed. So LCD, as the acronym, stands for liquid crystal display. Basically, it uses light modulating properties of liquid crystals combined with polarizers. That's what gets them moving. Liquid crystals do not emit light directly. Instead, they use a backlight or reflector to produce images in color or monochrome, which would be black and white. So if you take a look at the picture in the bottom right corner, you see the multiple layers I'm talking about there. Whereas odd and even colors, okay, there's no rhyme or reason, it's just placed odds and evens, would be illuminated, okay, or displaying their certain color mixed with other colors in the background to create, again, secondary colors, tertiary colors, or just have like a buttery smooth, non-pixelated display. And then in the background, you'd have this really high CFL light projecting high intensity light against those colors, which then would display your image on the LCD. So as I stated, LCDs were just not used just for television. They had little panels used for instrument clusters, computer monitors, signage for business, things like that. So LCDs kind of stuck around for a little time, and they set the precedence for new developing technology. So kind of going in from LCD, they moved into plasma, which kind of utilizes a similar feature where you have this liquid plasma inside that would emit different colors. Again, you have this really high bright intensity light projecting the image. A downside to plasma, even though it was kind of ahead of its time, if you will, was just the fact that it would get extremely hot to encompass and harness all that plasma energy. It was a lot of heat within that monitor, so I don't feel as though those stuck around too long. Maybe safety concerns or whatnot, but as I said, LCDs and plasmas further progressed into getting a little bit better. So we're going to actually sneak on over into the post Y2K era, or I like to call the modern HD era. So um, as I said, CRTVs, LCDs are now becoming obsolete. All right, consumers want the new stuff, keeping up with the Joneses, what have you. Replace those with LED monitors. So LED, also an acronym for light emitting diode TV, is a new technology where tiny little LEDs, maybe we've seen them, they're little bulbs, okay, that emit specific colors. So in the back, behind the display of an LCD, or I'm sorry, an LED monitor, you'd have thousands of these little tiny bulbs, LEDs, that emit color to create these images and motions with the highest resolution. So, I mean, in the top right corner, that floral picture, just the vibrancy that it creates. I mean, you could never produce something like that with a CRTV. And then when you even try to go to an LCD version, you may, to a certain extent, because of pixelation, where you wouldn't necessarily get that smooth, buttery contrast between colors. It would be more squared and pixelated. So these powerhouse TVs can really immerse the consumer within the picture, giving them real life in-person experience, as I've said with that floral picture there. So we have a couple different ratings, all right? We may be familiar with 720, 1080, but we're focusing on the I's and the P's. So the I's, if you have a 720i, it stands for interlaced, and then the P really stands for progressive. So it's usually followed by signals strengths of 480, which is a standard DVD disc image. So we put a DVD player, it's going to spit out a 480 kind of signal. And then you have 720s and 1080s, so your DVD players or your TVs would upgrade that signal strength, providing you an even more clearer image. Diving back into the interlace, the I signal, it divides the screen up, and it's refreshed with slight delays. So when you're watching a sports game, you got a guy running down the field, you're really watching him. You might experience some jaggedness, okay, between the running and the frame rates and things like that. So the 720i and the 1080i, for the lack of a better term, is kind of subpar to the P, or the progressive display settings that you can get. So the progressive signal means every line is refreshed always. So with that, you're taking a little bit more power consumption with your TV to accommodate for that refreshing all the time, but what you're doing is you're eliminating the jagged edge. You're really giving that smooth, ultra clear image that most consumers want in televisions these days. So another thing about the difference to the interlace and progressive is, a lot of interlace signals are offered by service providers, Comcast, UVerse, as a cost-effective alternative. So when you want these higher HD channels coming in, you might have to shell out a few more bucks to pay for that, and it may be worth it to that specific consumer. So as I stated, the higher refresh rate, the higher buttery smooth you get. Significant advances in display specs, weight reductions have played a huge factor in these new TVs. So, back in the context of CRTVs, we might be talking about a 26 to 32 inch TV, and it is a bulky dinosaur sitting in your living room. Huge. Okay, this device could weigh upwards 100, 200 pounds. We drastically over the years changed that style of TV to a 50-inch, okay, nearly twice the size display that is about 4 inches wide, and in terms of depth, I mean, that you can mount to your walls for a fraction of the weight that the existing CRTV. It's just so wild how you could compress everything now into there. So it's really, really neat technology. So going into a couple of questions, in terms of the textbook and the case, it did ask a few questions. I kind of rephrased the questions in the way that these slides I'm about to present to you, but it still gets the same gist. It gets the same questions answered. I feel like it elaborates on it, each segment a little bit more. So we're going to address the total value concept, okay? First, I mean, why do we have to answer these questions? Basically, it's getting to better understand what customers are looking for, and these questions we're about to talk about are going to be to better determine what the best purchase will be for the consumer. So as I said, we're going to go on into the total value concept, okay, and what to expect of it. All right, consumers will need to know the difference of benefits between the many brands that offer TVs. Okay, as I said, we covered Sony, we covered Samsung. They generally offer similar like characteristics, benefits, the clearness, the refresh rate, resolution. But what separates them? I mean, consumers really want to know that stuff. They also want to know the benefits, including the size, the display quality. What kind of peripherals can integrate with them? Are we talking HDMI connections? Are they smart TVs where we can use apps on our phone to mirror what's on our phone to our monitors? Things like that. These are questions consumers are going to be asking. All right, and then aesthetics. Are they really slimlined? Is a gun metallic gray going to fit the feng shui in my living room a little bit better than a archaic looking black kind of bulky looking monitor? So these are some of the values that customers want within their systems that they purchase. So next, to even get a customer to purchase, there's got to be a little bit of sales force, some driving action behind those products. So I want to dive into a salesman's perspective that directly influences the decision of the consumer decision making. So if we were to put ourselves in a salesman's shoes, we must make that TV display with the most vivid colors. Got to make it pop. You're going to walk through Best Buy, you're going to walk through, Target, Walmart, all these big box stores, and you generally see the same thing. It looks like Mother Nature in its finest form. Person scuba diving, really seeing the starfish and the vivid fish swimming by, or you can be in the rainforest where the tropical green colors contrast exotic orange frogs, things like that. Even football games really have a lot of popping contrast colors, and they may depict that. So those need to be showcased. It's almost necessary. You really want to get the customer immersed within that environment, make them really that surreal feeling, that they want to take that home with them. Um, the salesman must not only explain the various settings, but really let them drive the TV. And by drive, I mean put that remote in their hand, let them figure out how to use the TV, show them, of course. But I feel when you put a product in a person's hand, it's already half the battle. They want to leave with it in their hand now, and they'll do everything they can, providing you gave them a good sales pitch to do so. You want to get that customer really, really involved, as I said, and everything to help their purchase go through that door. Another couple things we're going to do is help identify the customer's understanding. So if there's areas that the customer doesn't really know about, in the context of this, we're going to be talking about some pixelation. So, large tech companies such as Apple, they allege their displays on all their devices, iPad, iPhone, uh, they say that it's this ridiculous 2048 by 1536 resolution. That's a resolution that's on like a big projection TV, okay, that you're cramming down into a tiny little phone. So, yes, I do not feel that you are going to notice at a naked eye the difference, the resolution, things of that nature. Even larger scale resolution displays are like extremely buttery smooth these days on their computer monitors and other laptops for that matter. It doesn't have to be just Apple products. It could be a lot of different things. And I wanted to really give you guys a good example of pixelation and how it gets improved over the years. So in the bottom, the Rubik's Cube looking shape, we have our original picture, all right? Extreme contrast. We have whites sitting next to magentas to blues to blacks, okay? And then you include another bit channel, okay? So that just improves how many more colors you can really fit in. So now there's different kind of blues, different kind of magentas, different kind of those whites where it kind of shades into different colors. And then moving on to the last one, I mean, that's a 3-bit channel, okay? That cube introduced to the 3-bit channel, we have 512 different colors in there. I mean, that is the smoothness that we're looking for, okay? We're not looking for high contrast and be able to determine the jaggedness, the pixelation. You want all the pixels to merge smooth so your image can be displayed at its finest form. these are the questions that, customers may have, and you're going to want to really dive into that. So, things that brands can be doing from a production standpoint, what things you want to emphasize, okay, the different specifications. So, as a product manager, from the production standpoint, you got to be able to convey all these specs of your TVs. It's an imperative, it's a must. These details can include resolution, pixels, display size, refresh rates, things of that nature. Really dive into each of those topics. And then also, I mean, the product manager should also be aware of consumers who exhibit brand loyalty. So I might have purchased something from Sony in the past. I really didn't care for it. So I might be trying Samsung, and I just love Samsung now. I have a Samsung phone, I have a Samsung TV, and I don't really want Sony. So I don't want the salesman to be pushing Sony or LG down my throat when I'm looking for a Samsung. They have to be able to pick up on that interpersonal communication between each other. So, then we're going to talk about different ways that marketing really influences different product perceptions, or the way that consumers perceive these products. So there are many different ways that products can be marketed, and they all directly affect the ways in which consumers perceive them. Flashy commercials on TV, catchy slogans embed to the consumers' minds. How about like French vanilla, Rocky Road, chocolate peanut butter cookie dough? I think you guys know I'm talking about the ice cream commercial. Things like that. People know TVs are going to be related to different commercials. Newspaper advertisements, we could go into side-by-side comparisons. Those are really, really neat because they break down price points in comparison to cheaper alternatives. They also break down specs. So you'll be able to see, oh, do I really need this high-end HG or HD TV? Or can I just get away with a little bit scaled down? And am I really going to notice it to my naked eye? This is what side-by-side comparisons are going to allow you guys to do. Offering low to no interest financing. You're talking about some really nice 8K TVs out there nowadays. They're a couple $1,000s. I mean, people might not necessarily have that money just laying around to throw out and shell out, I mean, on new devices. So having different rebates and forms of savings in tandem with options to finance will be more appealing to customers who really want to make that big purchase. And again, back to that brand loyalty, making sure that the customer, that the salesperson, the store knows that their wide variety will accommodate different consumers that exhibit different brand loyalties, things such as that. So, as this case was titled, it was talking about HD TVs, LCDs, LEDs, much ado about nothing. But is it about nothing after all? I mean, we know purchasing TVs, they're not the biggest life-changing purchases we're going to make. Yeah, they could be a little expensive, but I mean, they're by no means like purchasing a home or purchasing a vehicle, But still, careful consideration should take place, okay, to determine what TV fits best for which home, especially different specs that these consumers may be looking for. Okay, these brands, they market their TVs in the finest manner. You see them on TV, you see these Black Friday sales, you see them in the newspaper, okay? All the different unique abilities they offer, and they substantially differentiate themselves from different competitors by means of this advertising and marketing. So it seemed like a lot of rambling, guys, but I really hope that this presentation, at the very least, was an eye-opening experience, allowing you guys to better understand this huge world of HD TVs, different specifications they can offer, and whatever it takes to get one of these in your home. So as I can offer you guys, happy shopping.